New. Okay, Miss Wallace.
Hi, I am
Yeah.
going to sign in now.
Uh-huh. And then I have to allow you to share your screen.
It's connected. Oh, there we go.
All right. So you got.
Yes.
Okay, so you're unmuted now, right?
Yes.
All right, I'm seeing you.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, ladies, thank you so very much for logging back in. I will let Miss Wallace start without any further ado, so as not to, take up any unnecessary time. We seem to have gotten the technical difficulties sorted out. So, once again, Miss Wallace should be talking about conservation. The person who should be dealing with marketing and branding, they have canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. So without any further ado, I'm turning over the floor to Miss Wallace. Miss Wallace, the floor is yours.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm hoping that everyone can see me clearly. I'm having some serious technical difficulties, so I am using my tablet. Part of the presentation, I'm going to try and share my screen from my desktop, so I'll be trying to maneuver through 2 devices. So bear with me as technology gets the best of me today. All right, so my name is Camelia Wallace. You can call me Camelia, Miss Wallace, whatever you feel comfortable with it. I am a forestry officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, and today we're going to be discussing conservation. We're going to be focusing on a little bit of ecology, just basic knowledge that we must have. We understand that we are in a beekeeping course, and we probably are wondering, what does conservation and the importance of trees have to do with beekeeping? And we're going to find that out today. So I am going to take off my camera at this moment and try and go over to my screen to save some of the bandwidth. All right. Now we're going to share our screen. As I maneuver in this. All right, so basically, when we talk about ecology, and I love to ask a lot of questions, ladies, so we're looking for a lot of interaction today. When we talk about conservation and ecology, what comes to mind? Anyone? And there's no wrong answers. Without Googling it.
Conservation, careful use of resources to enable sustainability.
I love it. I love it. Anyone else?
The stewardship of kind of the land and like all the other stuff that it produces and all, I don't know. Stewardship of the earth, maybe, is what I was going for.
Stewardship of the earth. And I love that word. Stewardship of the earth. So we have a balance, and there is a balance when we talk about ecology and conservation. Now, by the very definition, ecology, the root word actually comes from Greek. Now, I don't speak Greek, but the word basically means the original word, which is okiros. It means the family household. And we know that anytime we see logi attached to any word, we know it's the study of. So by definition, ecology is the study of the environment, basically, or the study of the relationship between humans and their environment. Now, a lot of times when people hear this, we would get the terms mixed up with, we hear about ecology and we would tend to get ecology mixed up with environmental biology, environmentalism, environment. And the thing about it is ecology is a science that encompasses all other science. It encompasses biology and all the other logi studies or logi science, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So ecology, again, in its easiest form, is the relationship between humans and their environment. Now, for an individual like me who is a forester, I'm not an ecologist, I'm a forester, so there's elements of silviculture that I deal with. There's elements of ecology, botany, there's all other science that come together when you're handling work in the forestry unit. And as an ecologist or in the study of ecology, one of the things that we like to do in the field is to see how our impact as humans, especially in Antigua, is immediately affecting the environment. One of the projects, this is just me digressing, one of the projects that we have been involved in, and I speak passionately about, was in 2017. And this was a study on bats, or continued study on bats, because the first study was done in the 1990s and we have it actually on record. Now, yes. Now, one of the things that we noticed, we would have discovered, is that just like bees, bats are excellent pollinators, but they also are great indicator species to tell us what is happening in the environment. How does that happen? Bats, anytime there's something wrong with the environment, anytime there's a shift, or there is some sort of balance, or if the balance is slightly tilted positively or negatively, it will show in the bat population. By collecting data over the years, what we have noticed is that when there's a shortage of food, most of our bats, most of our nectavores would either have less pups in a year, depending on their population, or they would be smaller. So we will take a record of how much they weigh. When we catch these bats, the size of their wings, and anytime we notice that there's a shift, that these bats at any given season are smaller than what we expect them to be, we automatically know that there's either a shortage, well, most often than not, there's a shortage of food, or a roost has been disturbed, which would change their nestification habits. Now, I'm telling you all of this, and some of us are still thinking, okay, this is nice, but what does ecology have to do with bat keeping? What does the environment have to do with bat keeping? Ecology, what ecology?
Excuse me, we're not seeing your screen if you're sharing anything.
Mercy. Okay, let me try to see how best I'm getting it on. I'm trying my best here. I thought it was actually showing. Oy, oy, oy. Okay. Mm. All right, here's what I'm
In
going
my
to do. I'm going
defense, I
to
thought you were
email.
warming up.
All right, what I'm going to do, I apologize. What I'm going to do, I'm going to email the presentation with all the information so that you can actually see the presentation for yourself. I'm going to email it to, so
Miss
if
Charles.
the host, Ms. Charles, if you can just send me your email, what I'll do as I talk, I'll try my best to email the
INA,
presentation.
INA, Charles, the number 2 at gmail.com. Got it?
At Gmail. Okay.
All right.
Right. In order not for me to be distracted, as I'm going to try and talk and send the email at the same time. Bear with me. I do
Yeah.
sincerely apologize. So
Yeah,
basically,
send it
ecology.
and go ahead.
Ecology basically provides us with information for us to better understand the world around us. All right, this information can help us improve our environment, manage our natural resources, as somebody just indicated earlier, and protect human and animal health. All right, so we know a little bit about ecology, or basically what is ecology, or what is the environment? Hold on a minute. Okay,
Your screen is being shared now.
beautiful. Sorry guys, hold on, let me put it on full screen. Slideshow. Can everybody see my screen? No? Yes?
No, no,
No.
no. Not opposite.
No.
Yeah. Yes, it's up now. You zoom out to, okay, yeah.
To see it as clear as I can. All right. Now, the environment. Now, when we talk about the environment, we're talking about a specific location, the physical location, the actual location that we are. All right. So by definition, the physical location or surroundings where an organism exists or operate. All right. Most persons will define that at times as an ecosystem, but there is a little bit more. When we get into ecosystem, we're taking into consideration that there are other factors. So we're just focusing on that physical locations where organisms exist and how they operate in that environment. So the question is asked, okay, but how do these organisms interact with the environment? As beekeepers, this is information that we definitely need to know. They interact by this beautiful system that we call the hierarchy of ecological systems. And here we see the framework of how basically that looks like. When we refer to the individual, and as you can see my screen working, Gosh. All right, guys. This is. Whew. Okay, I'm going to try and
Camellia,
focus on one. Yeah, I'm going to try and focus on one because this is not working. The constant.
have you
the sheet
emailed?
and the- Should
Have
I
you
email
emailed
it
it
to
to me
you
as
right
well?
now?
Well, email it to me right now, so I will work with it from my end and assist you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so take a minute and email it to me, and then I will pull it up from my end and assist you. Okay?
Beautiful. All right. Mhm. Give me a minute, guys. Okay. Okay. 1 minute, everyone.
Ladies, thank you again so very much for exercising patience.
Okay, keep that email again because it's not. INA. Let me get that email address again. INA. Hello.
Camellia, she said
Sorry.
INA.
INA, Charles, the number 2 at
Charles
gmail.com.
or Charles?
Charles, CHARLES. Charles.
The number 2.
At gmail.com.
There we go. Have you received it?
I'm checking now. Not as yet. Let's see. Yes, I got it.
Okay, beautiful.
So I will be there. Okay, I got it. I'll be pulling it up and then I will assist you from this end.
Beautiful. All right, so. As she pulls up the information and the PowerPoint, we look at the hierarchy of ecology systems. Now, what this system does is basically show species succession and the way in which every ecology component interacts with each other. Now, these ecological components involve both living and non-living components, or living and non-living organisms. So it is basically how we see the worms interact with the dirt, interacting with the birds, interacting with the trees interacting with us, and the ear and how it interacts, because the ear is a component, both living and non-living, both things that we can see or cannot see. And next one. Yes, I guess so you can see it. Awesome. All right. So we're basically viewing the ecological system in the hierarchical framework from individual organisms in the biosphere and well, in the biosphere. Now, the word system, when we refer to the word system, in this situation, we're referring to an interaction or interdependency with each group. So organisms from the same species that inhabit a given physical location make up a population, and what you can see it from there. So we have one species. Out of that one species or that one organism, we have a succession. That succession would give us a population, because they're individuals, as we just said, organisms from the same species that interact in that physical environment, that one location, give us a population. Now, populations of different kinds of organisms interacting, whether they're competing with each other for space in that physical location, or they have a beneficial purpose. This will make up a community. Now the community, and this is how we see the succession growing, the community plus that physical location, that pointed location, make up an ecosystem. And we said earlier on that the ecosystem takes in all components, both living and non-living organisms. An ecosystem could be as big as the world, because the world can be considered, it is an ecosystem in itself, or as small as a bromeliad. Most people, if you don't know what a bromeliad is, if you ever, Country Pond, for example, when you go around Country Pond and you look on the power lines, you would notice that there's this plant that almost looks like a pineapple on the power lines. That's the most prominent place that I remember seeing them, unless you're going out into the forest and then you can see them there. Those are bromeliads. And they're different types, because some persons use ornamental bromeliads as well. As small as that plant is an ecosystem in itself. How? Now, what happens is that bromeliads are epiphytes, meaning that wherever they lodge, and most times they lodge on plants, wherever they lodge, they would not kill the plant. What they do, they have a beneficial relationship where the plant is concerned. So this epiphyte lodges on the plant, and when rain comes, the rain will deposit, or the droplets would deposit or land in the rosettes. The rosettes collect in the water, and when the leaves from the tree, the host tree, falls, it also collects in the rosettes. Small frogs, our local frog, the piping frog, the Bophus marinus, they will lay their eggs in the bromeliad. And what would happen is that the eggs will hatch as a nursery, and then a whole ecosystem is formed there. We have living and non-living organisms in that one plant. What we call wrigglers or the tadpoles from these frogs are food for certain birds and other wildlife. Now, getting back to our slide, we said the community plus the physical location makes up an ecosystem. Now, all the communities and ecosystem exist in the border in a dome that we call a biome. And there are different biomes there. You can characterize a biome by its vegetation. There are different types of biomes, and we're not going to even get into that. You can get into, you can identify a biome by its vegetation, by the soil you find there, the climate, and the wildlife. And then finally, we have the biosphere, which is that thin layer around the earth that supports life. Now there's another slide, and when you look at that slide, what you see is a better understanding of how the hierarchical system works. Here we see it more clearly as individuals. And when we're talking about individual combined, the next slide. Next slide. We see individuals combined to produce large functional wholes in a hierarchical series. And then we see new properties emerge. And those new properties, those other elements, those same species make up the population. Thus, as we move from individual to population, then to the ecosystem on a whole, we characterize, develop, new characteristics develop that were not present or not evident at the previous level. Now, when we look at all of this looks grandiose, it looks nice. But in the real world, the truth is that although these findings at any one level do aid the study on another level, they never completely explain the phenomenon occurring at each level. There are things in each of these levels that I could just tell you, any ecologist can tell you, but we would never understand it. Well, we know as Christians exactly where it comes from. There's elements in this that is purely God. So how out of one, we have 3 or 4 to make up a population, it is God. So far, for us to understand and properly manage a forest, and this is us even when we deal with ecosystem, we must not only be knowledgeable about trees on our part, but we must also study the forest as an ecosystem. So when I go out in certain areas, I consider that ecosystem and how fragile that ecosystem is. And then I try to understand how the various wildlife interact with these trees. And when we say wildlife, we include bees. I try to look for insects. I look for which insects pollinate what plant, what animal spread seeds. Now, for example, one tree that we have is the Cassia fistula. And it's a really amazing tree. And this is a tree that forestry at present, our nursery is down, but we're trying to propagate in large variety, golden shower. Bees absolutely love it. That and the, it's called the dogwood. I can't remember the scientific name at this moment. It's slipping me. I'm trying to remember it as I sit here. Bees absolutely loved it. And what we're trying to do is propagate them in large numbers. When you go down to places like Darkwood Beach, take a look at the trees that are there. the trees that are salt tolerant, and notice the trees that bees are most attracted to. In Antigua, the seed pods for the Cassia fistula is really produced. We can't find the seeds readily. I think over the years we found 2 trees, 108 square miles, and we were only able to find 2 trees, one on a property in Blue Waters and the other by the clinic in Erlings. And one of the problems that we had is to find, because the trees were very common, but what we were trying to do is find the animal, or rather yet the insect that was pollinating, whether it be a beetle. We know for sure it wasn't necessarily bees, because although we saw bees around, there was a certain element that we were expecting that we did not get. We know for certain it wasn't animals eating the seed pod because of how the seed pods grew. So this is something that we still have, that we're still trying to figure out. So we're going to go over to the next slide, and we're going to look at ecosystem.
Question.
Yes.
With the Cassie, what exactly is it you were trying to figure out?
There is a plant in Antigua. It's called the golden shower. I'm going to tell you where you can find it, because there's many around the island. No. For years, when you go by Robert Hall, this is for those of us who live in Jennings or past that area very often. Robert Hall's property, that big gap of land, every year there's a tree, yellow, spectacular, called the golden shower. Presently, what forestry did, when we found seed pods from the 2 properties that I spoke to you about, we started to propagate them. And we have these trees all around the stadium right now. A couple months ago, they were actually flowering. They're too young, so you wouldn't see seed pods from them yet. But what I was trying to say is that I think as beekeepers, this is one of the trees that, along with the dogwood, which bees absolutely love. For those of us who have large properties, these ornamental trees are beautiful, but they also attract a lot of bees. We are present.
Sorry, where can we get the Cassia fistula trees? Like, do they grow from cuttings or do they grow from seed?
You can actually grow it from the seed pod. If you find the seed pod is long. One seed pod would probably have maybe over 80 to 100 seeds in it. It stinks, it's very gummy, but once you have that dry seed pod, once you can find it, the 2 properties that I spoke to you about, earlier this year we went and we hunted, and we would have gotten a few seed pods. We do have a few seed pods in our present, but as I said, our nursery is still up and coming. But if at any chance you're able to find a seed pod, I would strongly encourage all beekeepers to propagate this plant, that and the dogwood. You don't necessarily get.
Miss Wallace, just a quick question. The tree that you're speaking about, is it a very tall tree? And when it bears the flowers, it's all yellow flowers and falls. And like you're saying, it's kind of sticky to the ground. Is that a tall tree?
It's a very, very tall tree.
I think I have 2 in my area.
Are you serious? Wow. Have you ever seen it fruit? Well, the trees, you would see some long brown seed pods from it. If at any time you ever see any, I would strongly encourage you to get it and propagate them and place them on your property. Bees absolutely love it. Now, as we move on to ecosystems, we know that ecosystems, as we would have mentioned the bromeliad, are communities of plants, animals, living and non-living elements interacting with each other in an environment. And this environment at times is self-containing. Sorry about the noise. The environment at times is self-containing, but again, it incorporates living and non-living elements. Ecosystem rely on two major sources of energy: the sun and chemical energy. So let me just say here that there's an enormous amount of solar energy that rains down by the sun on the earth every single year. The solar radiation on an area is diluted, is basically diluted energy. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because
Ms. Wallace? I'm not hearing you on this end. Is anybody else hearing?
Nope, not hearing a thing.
No, not hearing.
No, I'm not hearing anything.
All right, let's give her a second.
Ms. Charles, in the meantime, do you have a picture of that tree that Ms. Walls was speaking about?
I will look for one and send it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I think one of the choosers sent a picture of that tree last week when we were talking about the different trees that the bees would feed on. So I think he sent.
I'll double check.
Yeah.
Ladies, I sent the link to the golden shower tree in the chat, WhatsApp chat. You can have a look at it. Miss Wallace is having issues now with her internet, so we'll bear with her. What I will do, I will also post the presentation in the chat so you can have a look at it in the meantime. So give me a bit, please. Okay, ladies. Ladies, I will apologize, and I will sincerely apologize for all the hiccups we're having this afternoon. Who knows, maybe we were not supposed to have this session, but we started, and I'm sure that we made some headway. I will still try to share the presentation in the WhatsApp chat so that we can all have a look at it and have our questions ready. However, we'll be giving Ms. Camilla Wallace a second opportunity to complete a presentation with you at a later date, maybe in one of our regular classes. All right. So thank you so very much again for exercising the patience and for being with us this afternoon. I hope that you wouldn't consider it time wasted, but will appreciate all the effort that went into, bringing the information to you. We all know technology has a mind of its own sometimes, and we all have these hiccups from time to time. But ladies, from the bottom of my heart, me and my team, thank you so very much for coming out and for being a part of our family this afternoon. Have a great evening, everyone, and do continue to enjoy your
Miss
prayers.
Chance, before you
Yes,
go, will you send
yes,
the PowerPoints for us so that we can look at it in the meantime?
yes, I will.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
I will.
you.
I'm definitely working on it, so I'm trying to get it up before I leave where I am right now. So
Okay,
you
thank
should have it by
you.
this evening. All right, then. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thanks. Have a pleasant evening.
Pleasant evening, everyone. Be safe until we meet again. Next
Bye.
week, we go back into our regular class sessions. Those persons who were slated for Tuesdays, they show up on Tuesdays. Those who were slated for Wednesday, show up on Wednesday. Okay? So good night, everyone.
Okay.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Thank you.